Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maker Mondays with Great Lakes Science Center and Cleveland Public Library. My name is Joy, and today we're going to see if we can answer the question, what if I was a musician? And we're going to do that by learning more about instruments and about how they produce sound. And then a little bit later, we're going to see if we can make our very own instrument. Now, does anybody out there play any instruments already? So I play the piano. And I also kind of play the recorder, kind of. I learned how in like the 4th grade, and I can play approximately 4 songs. All of them are Hot Cross Buns or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or songs that sound suspiciously like that. So if you can already play an instrument, that is absolutely fantastic. So we're gonna see if we can learn more about the instruments that you may already play. So does anyone have a favorite type of music or a favorite instrument? Maybe one that they want to learn how to play? I don't know. So we're going to see what we can learn about instruments themselves. And we're going to do that by reading this book, Maria Makes Music. It was written, illustrated, and there's some special music that's going to go along with it. And that was all done by Breon Williams. So has anyone ever read this story before? Let's read it together. So, Maria Makes Music. Now, while I'm reading this, see if there's any instruments in here that you recognize or ones that you've maybe tried playing before. So here we go. Maria Makes Music. Maria loves music. She listens to music to express her ideas and her feelings. When she's happy, she plays her favorite song and dances to the beat. But how is music made? How are the sounds grouped together to create rhythm and melody? Maria remembers that her big brother David is a musician and a music producer. She decides to visit her big brother and asks him how music is created. David explains to Maria that music is a group of sounds that people have arranged in a meaningful way. The main elements of music are rhythm, melody, and harmony. Melody is a series of different tones or sounds in a piece of music. People use instruments to make music. Instruments make sounds with a specific pitch called notes. Most musical instruments fall into one of 4 groups: string instruments, wind instruments, keyboard instruments, and percussion instruments. So, string instruments. String instruments make sound using a stretched string that vibrates when the musician plays. Musicians play some string instruments by plucking strings with their fingers, hitting the strings, or rubbing the strings with a bow. So this is an electric guitar. Now, an electric guitar is a string instrument usually played with a guitar pick or the fingers. It uses wire-wound magnets that change the vibration of the strings into electric currents. These electric currents are sent to an amplifier that changes it to sound. Now, an electric guitar usually sounds a little something like this. So, a bass guitar is a string instrument related to the electric guitar. It's shaped like an electric guitar, but the bass guitar produces lower tones than the electric guitar does. The bass guitar is used to play low musical sounds called bass lines in many styles of music, like this. Now, an acoustic guitar creates sound acoustically by transmitting the vibration of the strings to the air without having to use electronic amplification like an electric guitar. The musician plucks or strums the strings with the finger or a guitar pick. The string vibrates, creating various different frequencies. like so. And there's the harp, which is the second biggest string instrument in an orchestra. The frame is usually a wooden triangle, and harp players pluck the strings with their fingers. This makes the strings vibrate, so that way the strings can make sounds, like these. And the piano is an acoustic stringed instrument. A normal piano has 88 keys. In the piano, the strings are hit by a block of wood called a hammer. And it makes sounds like this. Now the violin has 4 strings. The musician places it under his chin, and it's played by strumming the strings with the bow, like so. And wind instruments need air to make a sound. The player blows air into or over a mouthpiece. The air coming through the lips vibrates. That is where the sound comes from. The pitch of the vibration is determined by the length of the tube. Musicians use valves to change the length of the vibrating air and vary the pitch of their instruments. So the trumpet is the smallest of the brass wind instruments. It's played by blowing into the mouthpiece and making a buzzing sound. The pitch is changed using 3 keys called valves that the player can press to make these sounds. The clarinet is a woodwind instrument with 1 reed. The reed is attached to the mouthpiece. Blowing through the mouthpiece makes the reed vibrate, producing a sound. The holes are covered by the fingers to make musical notes, like these. The saxophone is a woodwind instrument that's made of brass. Even though it's made from brass, it is a member of the woodwind family of instruments because it has a reed. It was developed from the clarinet, and they're both very similar. The pitch is controlled by keys with shallow cups that seal holes in the saxophone, changing the frequency. Like so. So then there is the flute, which is a woodwind instrument, but it's made of metal. It was made of wood a long time ago, but flute players hold it flat and make a sound by blowing their breath over the edge of the hole of the flute's head. The flute sounds very bright and cheerful, playing high notes, like these. Now, keyboard instruments are musical instruments that is played by pressing a series of keys, push buttons, or parallel levers, which are pressed by the fingers. The most common of these is the piano, organ, and various electronic keyboards, including synthesizers and digital pianos. A keyboard is an electronic music instrument that is played by pressing the keys. Electronic keyboards are capable of recreating a wide range of instrument sounds, like this. Now, the organ is a keyboard instrument that looks like a piano. The most common Hammond organs create sound using metal wheels and electricity. Sounds like this. Now, percussion instruments are instruments which are played by hitting, shaking, scraping, or rubbing. Now, a person who plays a percussion instrument is a percussionist. A drum is a percussion instrument that is struck with the hands or with a drumstick. A drum set is a collection of drums, cymbals, and other percussion instruments that is used by a drummer to make beats for music. The snare drum has small cables of metal wires that are stretched across the bottom to make the loud tat sound. The hi-hat consists of two cymbals that are either struck together by using a pedal below or by hitting with a drumstick. The largest drum that is struck with a hammer by pressing a foot pedal is the bass drum. And tom-toms are typically two drums across the top of the kit. Cymbals are used to make a loud crash sound. And drums sound a little something like this. Bongos and congas are percussion instruments played with the hands and fingers. Congas are larger, and the depth of the shell is much larger than the bongo. And they sound like this. Whether you play an instrument or simply listen to music for your own enjoyment, music can have a great impact on your life. Music allows you to tap into your inner creative spirit, and the sheer happiness you might get from it is reason enough to make music. So, now we have learned, along with our friend Maria, about lots of different instruments. Did you see any in the book that you recognize? Maybe some that you play, maybe some that your friends or your family play, maybe some that you've seen at school before. There's lots of different types of instruments, and those aren't even the only instruments out there. There's lots and lots and lots. And while instruments are all very, very different, and they all make lots of different sounds, did you notice that they're all played very, very differently? But they all have one big thing in common, and that's that they make sound. Now, there's lots and lots of different types of sounds. All these different instruments make different types of sounds. The fact that I'm talking is a different sound. And sounds, like instruments, are very, very different, but they have a few things in common. So all sound requires a force. So if I were to just hold my hands up like this and kind of look at them, Are they making noise? They're just kind of there. But if I were to add a force, which is a push or a pull, and clap my hands together, it would make a sound. Ready? You can clap along with me and make sound. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Sound. And that happens because I added that force to clap my hands together. Now, sound is a vibration. And what a vibration is it's something that moves, moves back and forth really quickly. So if you've ever taken two fingers, take two fingers just like this and put them on your throat, kind of like right here, and just talk, say a couple of words. Something in there might feel a little bit funny. So go ahead and see if you can find those vibrations right here on your neck. Just by me talking, there's some vibration happening. Do you feel that? Try saying different words, making different letter sounds. See if you can feel different vibrations in your neck. Those are your vocal cords that are vibrating. When you talk, they move back and forth really fast. And so they're vibrating. Now, you heard me mention vibration in the story. And that's because different instruments vibrate in different ways. For example, if I were to strum a guitar, those strings would start vibrating. Now, the sound carries, and then even when it reaches your ear, you have something called an eardrum, and there's little tiny bones in your ear that when the sound hits them, start vibrating too. And then it carries the sound to your brain, where your brain is like, oh, that is a piano, or that is a trumpet, or that is a drum. So sound requires a force, and it's a vibration. Now, it also travels in something called a wave. And I'm not talking like an ocean where a whole bunch of water goes flying, but so sound travels in like a shape called a wave, looks kind of like this. And there's certain things about our sound waves that you can change. So there's the frequency, which controls the pitch, which is how really high and squeaky or really low something is. So if you have lots of waves really close together, that is a high frequency. So things are really high and squeaky. Or if there's not as many waves that are further apart, there's a big distance between each wave, your pitch is a lot lower. Now, the other thing that you can control about sound is the volume, or how loud or quiet something is. So I'd be willing to bet that at some point in your life, all of you watching me have either yelled or screamed or been told to use your inside voice. I know when we're at the library, we need to use our inside voices. I have problems with that because I try to use my inside voice. My inside voice is just very loud. I try. But the thing is, if you've ever noticed, when you yell, you got to take a bigger breath of air in, right? Because you need a little bit more force and a little bit more air to get that sound out. But if you whisper, you don't need to push as hard. So there's less force. And that happens because your waves are much taller when you have more force, which gives you more volume. So taller wave means it has more amplitude and you're louder. But when you're being quiet, the waves aren't as high and they're much smaller. So the other cool thing about sound is it can travel through lots of different things. It can travel through solids. So has anyone ever sat in a room and you can hear people talking in the next room? I don't know if you were able to hear this, but while I'm in here talking to you, there's people out there, there's music going on our exhibit floor. You're able to hear that, or I'm able to hear that at least, because the sound is traveling through the wall. Sound can travel through liquids. So has anyone ever been underwater and you can hear someone or something next to you underwater? Maybe if you're swimming. Sound can also travel through gases. So if you're in the same room as someone, the fact that you can hear them or they can hear you is because the sound is traveling through the air. Now, the only thing sound cannot travel through is a vacuum, which is why there's not really sound in space. So now we've learned a lot about sound itself. So let's see if we can combine what we've learned about sound with what we learned about instruments to make our own musical instrument. So before we make our instrument, we have to remember that we're going to be engineers. And engineers use something called the engineering design process. Now, some of you might look at your materials and you want to sit with all of them and you want to think about everything and plan every step out one by one before you start building. And that is fantastic. Some of you might look at different materials and think, look at this rubber band. What can I do with this? Will this work? Will this work? And actually ask questions about what will work and what won't work at any given time. And that's also wonderful. Some of you are creators. You just want to jump right in and put things together and build and just see what happens and go from there. And that is all great. But the one thing that all engineers have in common is that they will circle back and improve on their designs. So everything doesn't always work 100% perfectly the first time, and that is okay. What's important is that we keep trying and keep building to see what we can do. Now, the thing about improving is we're learning, because we're learning what doesn't work and why. And we can use that to apply to our next design to see if we can make something that works a lot better. So we're going to take all of this and see if we can make our very own instruments. So let's take a look at our materials. So if you have your materials, you can go ahead and get them out. Or you can see if you can get ideas about how to make instruments with other materials along the way as well. So I have rubber bands, just normal rubber bands. They're very stretchy. And I have a paint stir. This is one of those like little sticks. You open a can of paint, you mix it up with one of these. I have some scissors. It is very important that we use our scissors safely. I have some masking tape, like so. Got a balloon. I've got where'd it go? This one. I have a plastic cup. This one's pretty sturdy. You want with your cups to be as sturdy as possible. I have two different ones. This one's a little bit sturdier, so I'm going to go with this one. And I have two plates. Now, this one is a little bit thinner, and this one's a little bit sturdier. So remember, we want these to be as sturdy and strong as possible. So I'm going to try building with this one, but if it's not strong enough, I might switch. So we're going to see if we can use these materials to make our own guitar. So does anyone remember what our guitar looked like? I'm going to see if I can find it in our story. Let's see. As cool as I think making an electric guitar would be, I don't have an amplifier. So here we go. Here's our guitar. So we have our body of the guitar, we have the strings, and we have this long neck. So let's see, what do we have that can be the body of the guitar? Don't think, this is kind of shaped like a guitar, but it's not really very sturdy. So I think I'm going to go with a plate. So we have the body of my guitar, but guitar has strings, right? What do you think we can use as our strings? Don't think this is going to work. What do you think? Is this going to work? Probably not. Or I'm thinking rubber bands. I don't know about you. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can stretch our rubber bands over our plate to make strings. So I think I'm going to go with 6 because one. Yeah, I don't think this plate is sturdy enough, personally. So here's my first fail. I picked a plate that is not very sturdy, as pretty as it is. And I mean, it makes sound. But I want to see if I can find a material that's sturdier. So hopefully you have a sturdier plate than me. This is not a sturdy plate. I knew that to begin with. I just like the flowers. So So don't get discouraged by my fail. See, listen, I failed. I kept trying. I noticed this is not a sturdy plate. So I'm going to get a plate that is a lot sturdier. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my guitar string. So I have my rubber band over my plate, and I can strum and make sounds. But guitars, like I said, they don't just have one string. So I want to see if I can put a few more on. Like I said, I'm using 6 because, hang on, how many strings does a guitar have? Yeah, this one has 6, so that's what I'm going with. So I want to make sure, so do you think if I do this, it'll work as well? It kind of works. But the problem is, because I want to put a neck on this guitar, I don't want it to be where the rubber bands are, because that way the rubber bands won't vibrate as well. And so if I keep crisscrossing, there's going to be nowhere to put the neck of this guitar. So this is really cool. I do like this, but it changes the sound a little bit, right? If you want to go with a design like this, absolutely go for it. What I think is really cool is you can make it look as much like a real guitar as you want, or you can try to make your own cool instrument design. So let's see, I have 2 strings now. Okay, got some notes happening. I'm gonna add rubber band number 3. So I'm trying to make it look kind of like a real guitar. Multiple notes at once. That's good. I'm gonna add number 4. All right. And then we'll do, and I gotta make sure that I'm leaving enough room for my neck. I'm gonna add number 5. Actually, before I forget, I'm just gonna attach the neck now, and then I'll add some more strings. So if you're still adding strings, there is no rush at all. I'm gonna add the neck of mine just to make sure that if I keep shoving my strings on, that the neck still fits. So how I'm gonna do that is I have my paint stir stick. I'm going to tape it to the back of the plate. Notice I left sort of like a lane here. I'm going to tape my paint stick to that middle lane. I'm going to use probably a lot of tape because I want to make sure that it's nice and stable and it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm probably going to have to do some tape across and not just the bottom, because I've already do this. See, it fell down. But what's good is I can lift this rubber band and get it out of the way, so that way I don't tape the rubber band down and mess up the sound at all. Yeah. I broke that tape. It's fine. All right. So I'm going to make sure that I have lots of tape underneath my rubber bands, so that way it doesn't go anywhere when I try and pick it up. So if I were to tape my rubber band down, it would probably still work. But again, I want to make sure that I have the best sound possible, and I want to give my rubber bands room to vibrate and move. And if they're stuck, you can't really do that. I got this nice and attached, so that way it's not going anywhere. All right, so I have my neck of my guitar. I can adjust these in if I want. And the cool thing about this is you can try putting your rubber bands in different places and see if having them in different spots affects the sound at all. I'm a musician. So I want to see if I can get any more rubber bands on there. I don't want to break my plate, but it's looking pretty good. 5 and 6. So I now have my 6-stringed guitar. Let's see how it works. Can play a song. So yeah, keep working on your guitars. If your guitar does not look exactly like mine, that is okay. You see what each individual note does. They all sound a little bit different. I don't know how you can hear it through the webcam, but each note sounds a tiny bit different, so I can play whole songs. All together, I'm making sounds. Another cool thing you can try that I just discovered. So if you've ever seen someone play or have played a real guitar yourself, you know that when the people playing the guitar hold these, the strings actually stretch all the way down. So they push down on each individual string. So you can try pushing down on the strings on your plate and see if that affects your sound at all. So this is with the string pushed down, without it. So there are different sounds happening just by affecting how the different rubber bands are on the plate. So yeah, keep building. See what you can discover. Maybe you can try, do you want to try adding more strings or less strings or changing where the strings are? I'm going to see what happens if I do 4. Slightly different sound. I'm going to try. You can try adding the strings in different places. That affects things. So what kinds of things are you discovering about your guitar and how it's built? Now, if you're still building your guitar, keep going. I want to see what kinds of guitar designs you can come up with. But if yours is built, we still have some materials left over. So I want to see if we can make any other instruments with our materials. And then maybe we could have a whole band and we can jam. So let's see, what materials do I have left? I still have my balloons. I still have my scissors. I still have my cup. I wonder if I can build a drum with my cup and my balloon. So as I said, if you're still building your guitar, keep going. I'm just trying to see what other instruments I can make with these materials. If you have any ideas for instruments that you can build, go ahead and try it. I want to see what sorts of things you can come up with. So I'm just going for a drum because why not? So my balloon stretches, but it doesn't really stretch very far because of this neck. So I'm going to be really careful with my scissors and I'm going to cut the neck off like that. And I want to see if I can stretch this balloon over the top of my cup. Maybe. Get on there. There we go. So I got my balloon over the top of my cup. And then I fling it off of the top of my cup. I may need some tape for this. Something else I learned just now by failing. This cup is very large. The balloon needs a little help to stay on the cup. Because I'm kind of making one of those drums. I also just broke it. But I can still make a drum. So I'm just going to tape this on. This is kind of my version of, where is it? Remember that big drum we saw towards the end of the story? That conga drum, these ones, this is kind of my version of this, even though my balloon broke. But I can still attach it and tape it on. Still makes sound. I have an extra paint stick that I'm using as a drumstick. So now I've made a drum and guitar. So looking at my two instruments, they're made very, very differently, but they both produce sound. So what do you think is the difference in how these sounds work between my guitar and my drum? So my guitar has strings, right, that I pluck and strum, and whenever I pluck a string or strum a string, the rubber band, oh, you can see that really well, the rubber band moves very, very quickly, like that. And that's how the sound is able to carry. Now, the vibration happens when I strum the strings, and then it's able to carry through. But that's a little bit different than our drum. So our drum, it's a little bit harder to see because the rubber bands there's no rubber bands that are stretched super thin. So, but these, vibration happens when I add the force like this and send my rubber band flying across the room, or like this, or I can make them happen like this. Now I can try, it kind of makes sound like this, but most of the sound comes by adding the force like so. Like that. So the vibration is happening inside of this drum topper. So I'm going to see if I can get my other balloon stretched so that way you can hopefully see it a little bit better when it's not broken. But, so the vibration happens when I hit the top of the drum and the force goes through this top of the drum part. So because the vibration happens differently, and because these are different materials, they are making different sounds. Now, I'm hitting them with about the same amount of force. Because remember what I said, there we go. That's a better sound. Remember what I said, so the more force you add, the louder the sound. So if I were to just gently tap this drum, it's kind of making noise. Not really. But if I were to grab like a drumstick and add more force, much easier to hear, right? Or if I were to grab my guitar, which I'm going to add another rubber band to, just kind of touch it. Not a lot of sound there, but if I were to add a lot more force, you can hear it much better. So now we've taken a lot of what we learned about sound so far. We've made a guitar out of plates and rubber bands and a paint stick and some tape that I think we can have a full-on concert and go show all of your friends and your family your cool new instrument. You can play for whoever you want. Make up. So see what songs you can make up, or if you can teach yourself to play any songs. Might go back to my Twinkle Twinkle Little Star days. I gotta learn what note is which though. And now I also just made a drum. And I wonder, have any of you thought of any ideas of what instruments you can make with the materials that you have? Maybe you figured out how to make a really cool piano or a flute or some instrument that no one has ever even seen before. And all of them, I'm willing to bet, are pretty cool. So I want to see if you can create as many instruments as you can think of and create your own songs. And keep building. Maybe there's ways that you can take your guitar and see if you can make it better. Maybe you can play more notes. Maybe if you can figure out how to make it louder. It all depends on what cool things you can experiment with and design. So you all did a fantastic job learning about instruments and sound and how we can be musicians today. So keep on working on those homemade instruments, keep playing music, and make sure you come back next week to tune in to our next all-new Maker Monday episode. Now, keep creating, keep playing, have fun, and until next time, stay curious.